positive note about a medium that is fairly infant in India. We are, down really only 10 years on private FM radio in India. And let me throw this to Alexander, to you. So while we are like, down 10 years of FM radio, but some of the West is probably down many, many more decades, and is now about the efficiencies of digital radio. And Alexander actually touched upon a lot about how, two-way communication, interactivity, and targeting contextual advertising through digital radio. Obviously, like on television, it took us about 5 years to actually go digital, and now we're starting to see, the metros and the mini metros actually having STBs and being digitized. And still, it's not two-way, and interactive is still maybe, a long way away, which is a reality in the US and UK today, where on Sky you could actually do enough interactivity with the consumer. As FM radio plays out today on analog, Prasun, where do you see, a relevance for radio and advertising, and you being, one of the front-end technology plus consumer company like Reliance Communication, and where you guys themselves, your handsets and your devices are FM transmitters yourself. What do you see the role of advertising for, people like you, and what do you see the role of radio?
Well, as marketeers, primarily we are concerned about two things. There's, we are concerned about immersive consumer conversation that we can have as a brand, and we are concerned about return on investment. If I look at radio at this point of time, I think next to online or digital as a medium, radio is the only other medium which can be as conversational in nature as, a medium can be. And I think that's an inherent strength of radio as a medium. And, that gives me a lot of confidence, therefore, in this medium to kind of, use it smartly and, use it for, ROI purposes. Now, but having said that, there are challenges that are involved, for a marketeer. I mean, I just heard so much of technology coming my way, on radio, and it almost sounded like alien. It didn't sound radio to me. And, I mean, on my right-hand side, Anupriya is a champion of managing fragmentation and audiences. So, you can imagine the job of a marketeer and, how we are sandwiched between the two. But, radio is a unique medium which is consumed in multiple forms and in multiple contexts and in multiple ways. Unlike any other form any other medium where you require a certain, you are talking about end consumer, hardware availability, etc. Radio is consumed inside a car in a different way, at home in a different way, in your mobile phone in a different way. But at the same point of time, is the consumption of the same content happening all the time. And that tells me that there is demand for this content. And, and therefore, I as a marketer am deeply interested in looking at how consumers are consuming this and what role can a brand play in this entire, consumption pattern to really further its story or take its proposition out, to the consumer.
So interestingly, you as a marketer did something very innovative, and, we worked with you, so I can talk about it, is that you pretty much used only interactivity and announcement as a medium to launch your iPhone services very recently. And for some of you guys who may not know, actually, Arcom didn't use television as a medium, but decided to use outdoor and radio as their key medium to launch their iPhone services. What was your experience? What made you take that decision, and, what came out of it?
Okay. So if I have a little bit of time, there's a very interesting story behind that. Apple, as we all know, is a very premium and aspirational brand throughout the world, and therefore they control their brand in ways that you can't even imagine, right? So, when we got into a co-marketing initiative with Apple, I got this thicker dossier from them, and that dossier was all about media usage. What media you can use, what media you can't use, and how you can use a certain media, and how you can't use a certain media. And I'm like, God, I mean, first we'll have to go through this 300-page dossier, and only then we can talk about making some sort of plan and going out in the market. And interestingly enough, and you'll be surprised to hear that against radio, there was a cross mark. There was a red light. They said you can't use radio. Apple doesn't use radio. We don't believe radio is a medium to build brand. You can use radio for tactical purposes. You can use radio for, maybe driving footfalls to your stores or doing some sort of promotion. But hey, iPhone on radio, not allowed. And I was quite intrigued, I mean, I was like, why would, this kind of a diktat come, and, what could be the reason? But yeah, I mean, I do realize that in Western market and more advanced market, radio plays a different kind of role, and it has a different stature. But it is not so in India. So we had a very interesting discussion, 3 rounds of discussions with Apple to just really discuss with them why radio is important in India and why we should be doing something interesting on radio. We definitely did not want to get onto television because again, saying iPhone brought by Reliance didn't mean anything to consumers at the end of the day. We had to really, go out with a convincing proposition, and we felt at that point of time that radio was a medium which could have driven a huge amount of conversation with right kind of audiences that we wanted to reach out to. And the strength of our proposition, which was for the first time, in India, a telecom operator was bringing a concept of a contract buy, where you can lock in yourself with an operator and only pay for a plan or a data plan for a month, and take the device for free in return, right? I mean, in first 20 to 30 days of launching that campaign on radio, supported by out of home, I had got close to about 100,000 leads, and people who had deposited 3 to 5,000 rupees in my stores, waiting for an iPhone to happen. So that just again reassures me that this is a medium, if it is used well, and if it's used for right purposes, can really deliver ROI and really deliver the audiences.
Thank you. So I think it's an interesting one, because I read newspaper reports where Apple was struggling to deliver the iPhones that you guys had booked, and all sort of so that's why I wanted to come to you, Prasun, before we wind up. And I can see a signal there. What do you think is the role of measurement in radio? And she spoke about adding up reach and stuff like that. What would you expect as an advertiser for radio and broadcasters as well as agency to do in contributing towards measurement, or creating a measurement system on radios? There is RAM, and there is RAM in some key cities in the country, but I don't know how much both broadcasters as well as agencies use enough of that. And what would your desire be?
Well, before I answer the question, one point Anupriya was making, which was about the local nature and the strength of radio. A national brand, any national brand, has its own pockets of strength within the country as well. No national brand is really strong everywhere, in the country. So, Reliance Communication, for example, we are a national brand, but there are pockets of strength. There is a certain pocket of strength for us in north, some in south, some in west, some in east. So, in such a scenario, as a marketeer, I also tend to start scouting for medium and ways to connect with consumers which are local in nature and which minimize the spillover and therefore deliver high ROI. Coming back to your question, Tarun, it's a must. Any marketeer would want to, it's a marketeer's dream to have all kind of data and all kind of transparent measurement data in front of him, because at the end of the day, every single bit of marketing dollar that you are investing, you are accountable for that, and you need to obviously answer back to board and management about the efficacy of that. So I mean, radio at this point of time, I definitely would want to highlight that one of the reasons why a whole lot of marketers also hesitate on getting onto this medium is because it's not a very well measured medium. I mean, you have a measurement only happening in 4 cities at this point of time, and that too on a diary method and the old methods of measuring it. I think radio as an industry needs to come together and really plan it out well and do something about it, because it will go a long way in convincing a whole lot of marketeers or brands who are not yet utilizing this medium on a pan-India level to really come on this medium, because that's definitely one of the reasons, lack of
before I wrap this up, so Anu, what do you think about measurement? Where does the responsibility of measurement lie? Right,
obviously with you. Let me not mince words.
At one end of the spectrum, we're talking about going digital on technology, but we haven't even moved to digital on measurement in the existing scenario. And LV has come and presented to the broadcasters many times about how we must move radio measurement to being digital like TV, and put meters in and all that. And he's done tests, and he's gone pretty far. But the problem is that obviously the cost of measurement, which is the same problem in television, is who bears it and how is it going to go about it. And my thought is that aren't advertisers and agencies who are actually putting the large dollars out there of their money on either radio or on television willing to partake more in measurement?
So yes, we are willing to partake, but I underline that we are just willing to partake. So see what we've seen usually, whether it is television and now digital, of course. If you look at television as the measurement on that, the maximum sort of benefit always happens to the medium and hence to the broadcasters in that sense. And similarly, in this case, as radio becomes more fragmented, and of course, digital radio, I think the measurability anyways will improve, and hopefully the measurability and the research, the costs will be much lower. But definitely, there is one, definitely a lot more need for measurement over here. And two is, I truly believe that since it benefits.
But don't you think that, when there are conflict points, then the ownership of data and the, it tends to then go one way or the other? I mean.
Yeah, but we can have a neutral party doing it. I'm only talking about funding.
But I think the best method is it should be online. And that interactivity part which is possible in digital.
Digital will
so
actually
that
lead
will
to
give us,
far easier measure.
and in fact it will give another advantage, what a listener wants.
Correct.
Immediately broadcaster will come to know, so they can meet the demand of the listener.
Correct. It'll be very close to each other.
Very close to each other.
Prasun, any closing remarks?
Well, I as an advertiser feel that radio is one medium, especially in the context of India, where it has a long way to go. We are a big enough country, and there are enough consumer segments available in this country who are ready to consume different kinds of services at different point of time. So, I mean, while there has to be a demand for, the current analog form of, radio, consumption, there would be another segment which will be demanding better consumer experience, better listening experience, and therefore digital, form of radio consumption would have its own demand as well. But as we go forward, I think as a brand marketeer, I would look forward to more and more interactivity. I would look forward to, more and more immersive conversation that I can drive with consumers. I at this point of think, potentially radio can be one of that medium.
I think clearly, there's no staying away from digital and staying in the analog.
Very insightful and informative. There was news that private FM channels in phase 3 would be permitted to go in for news and not just entertainment alone. Is that going to become a reality?
Yes, it is a part of the phase 3 policy, and actually we all are hoping that it will be part of the phase 3 policy as the new government also arrives. And I think it will do tremendous good to the consumer, as well as to the broadcaster, as well as to the advertiser, because there will be far more traction on private FM than there is today with adding on news to it.
Yeah, so how soon would that be a reality?
Hopefully early next year.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anupriya. Thank you, Prasun. Thank you, Alexander. Thank you, Mr. Pal.